What's up guys, welcome to this review of Rocketman, a biopic fantasy musical film all about the life of Elton John. And that's kind of all the story is. On one hand, it's a biopic telling you about how he learnt to play the piano, how he got into music and so on, and then how he became famous and a big star. Then on the other hand, it's a celebration of his music. As a biopic, I think it's kind of a mix between like the Bohemian Rhapsody style, where it is just a retelling of their life or a moment of their life, mixed in with like Mamma Mia, where it's like they've got the music, they're now setting it to a story and they're using it as much more like, yeah, let's celebrate this. And I kind of like the approach that they've got here, in that it's not entirely accurate, it's not entirely focusing on the actual events and how they happened, it's not entirely focusing on the characters and what they were like. It's much more trying to be entertaining as it is trying to be educational and informative. And I kind of like that. It feels like a fresh new take on a biopic almost. But what did I think of it overall? I liked it. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. So, also, big fan of Elton John, so that helps. So in terms of the story, it does kind of play out like a typical biopic, the actual overall story, in that it is showing you the highs and lows of his life. So it shows you his origins essentially, and then what happened with him there. So I'm not going to dive into that too much because it's spoiler territory, but if you know Elton John, chances are you know most of this stuff anyway. One of the things I really liked about the story is that it doesn't shy away from the low points of his life and his career. It shows you that he did have struggles, he did have problems, there were there were like substance abuse issues there were like anger issues in there as well. And Elton John, I believe, was a producer on this, he was a consultant on this, so I kind of like and admire that they went in and they're not like shying away from it, they're not hiding much from the audience, and not trying to say like, oh, he's just this all-out good guy. And one of the things I really liked about it is that they actually give full credit to everyone who was around Elton John helping him make the music, because Elton John, yes, he came up with like the piano tune, and yes, he sang the songs and he performed them, but he never wrote the words. That was someone else, and they give full credit to this person. This person has a huge role to play in this movie, and I really like how it highlights that, because a lot of biopics, a lot of these, particularly ones focusing on like musicians and singers and so on, they kind of overlook everyone else except the star. Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, it makes it out as if Freddie Mercury was like the be-all, end-all, and yeah, maybe that was kind of the case for that incident, but let's face it, the others had stuff to do as well. So to put focus on Elton here, but also highlight the fact that there were other people involved and they had a huge pivotal role to play, I really thought was a nice touch and a little different. But to touch on the music and the way that that's introduced, I said it was a bit like Mamma Mia. So what they've done here, rather than it being like, right, he went to this place and played this song, then he went to this place and played this song, it's much more, they've got some of his key iconic songs and they've put them in key moments and events of his life. So Saturday Night, for example, is played in a time when he was in a pub performing for rowdy crowds that often burst out into fights. So they've really found like the crux of what these songs could mean, what they suggest, and they've put them to certain events and moods, and it's much more of a musical film and a sing-along film than it is a biopic at times, and I like that because it makes it fun, it makes it entertaining, it makes it surprising. And one of the posters, the poster that's actually behind me right now, is based on a true fantasy, and that kind of delves into this. This is a film that wants you to have fun watching it, it wants you to be entertained by watching it. And I feel like that so much encapsulates what Elton John was about, because he is this flamboyant, entertaining performer. And that's kind of what he wants to portray himself as. But then there is this human side of him as well in the background, and the film shows you both sides of that, and I think that's brilliant. But in terms of the characters, Elton, of course, is the main character. It shows you how he grew up, how he had this rough relationship with his parents, let's say. Bryce Dallas Howard plays his mum. Pretty good accent from her, I think, although she doesn't have too much to do except for like just kind of sitting there and berating him a little. And then his dad, who clearly had no love or affection for him whatsoever. I think it does a good job of showing that. And then it goes on with other characters. So you've got how the guy who wrote the songs, you've got all these agents, and then it even shows you the people he was married to and the relationships that he had, how he always struggled to find love in the right place and so on. All of these characters feel important. Some of them are a little one note at times, so I'm not going to pinpoint anyone out. I kind of have already pinpointed someone out, but some of them don't have too much to do except for interact with Elton in certain ways, and they just keep interacting in that way. So that's fine. They're playing their part. That's what they're meant to do. But it does mean that Elton and the guy played by Jamie Bell, who's the writer of the songs, they're the two main characters of this film, really. And they're the two characters that feel like the most developed and fleshed out. In terms of production, this is a gorgeous film. It's well directed, well paced. The music scenes play out like action scenes almost, because they are almost like a Broadway play where there's dancers coming on, there's singing, there's all sorts. It just feels like a big, fun, entertaining moment. I feel when you first see that happen in the film, it feels really distracting and jarring because you kind of don't expect it, especially if you go into this expecting a much more traditional like drama biopic film. So it does a good job of setting the mood and tone pretty early on, and the costumes are fantastic. Of course they have to be, it's Elton John. He had some bizarre, unique, interesting looks, so they've really captured them. They've changed some of them here and there. It shows you at the end of the film in the credits how they based the costumes on costumes that he actually wore, but they've tweaked them a bit. Taron Egerton is brilliant as Elton John. He could get an Oscar nomination for this. I'm not sure if he will, but it's a really great performance, and I think he was almost perfect casting. So that's great. The look of the film, it's really good looking, really gorgeous, good cinematography. It really shows you how it's like moody and grey and like fairly muted colours when he's in England and when he's growing up in England. And then when all of a sudden he goes to like Hollywood, becomes a star, things start to brighten up a bit. There's much more lighting, much more colour. And so the cinematography works well in that way as well. It's a really gorgeous film. Ultimately though, Rocketman, a really good film. I do recommend it. The more I think about it, the more I like it. It's a biopic that's also trying to be different, and I think that sets it apart from like Bohemian Rhapsody, because we have in recent years gotten a slew of these biopics where they all kind of paint by numbers, like, right, here's a biopic, here's the structure, stick to that structure, just change who the focus is. This one doesn't really do that entirely. Yeah, if you take away the musical stuff, yes, it is kind of doing that, but the musical stuff in here and the way that it portrays it sets it apart, and it does a really good job of that. I'm not going to go into spoilers, don't have much more to say beyond that. This is also totally unplanned, so I don't have any notes to go on. That's my review of Rocketman. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, subscribe to my channel. The more subscribers I get, the more content I can make, and we all love that content. Seriously, if you're watching this, subscribe to my channel. It takes 2 seconds to click to subscribe, so I really appreciate that. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton if you're interested. Until next time though, that's my review of Rocketman. I do recommend it. Thanks for watching.